Oh, Hugo. Oh, Hugo. Hugo's getting to be an old man. Happens to the best of us, Hugo. You're doing good, Hugo. You're doing good. You're doing good. Uh-oh. It's about to be an attack. Maybe not. Looked like there was going to be an attack there. Anyway, we're not here to talk about those critters. We're here to talk about what I consider one of the most beautiful, I guess, families of plants. It's really not a family. It's a genus of plants in all of California. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at that. Where is that coming from? It's coming from right here. Look at this. Isn't this super gorgeous? So pretty. Now, lots of you. This is such a common plant. So many people, you're going to say, yeah, I know what that is. I know what that is. So, California has a really amazing flora, actually. There's so many cool stories of the flora of California. And this is one of them here. This is the family of plants that we know as Arctostaphylos Manzanita. Just the name itself is so cool. It means little apple in Spanish. And eventually, you know, lots of these manzanitas, if they form fruit, will form small little miniature apple-looking fruits that taste kind of like a bitter apple. I've eaten plenty when I'm up in the Sierra, and I'm extremely desperate. I'm catching the tail end of this one here. This is Manzanita. No, it's not. It's Arctostaphylos pajaroensis. Ensis kind of means from. And this one is native to the area around the Pajaro River down, and I guess that would be Monterey County. So, and it's also native to a few hilly regions around there. Apparently it grows in sand, I think. But here I have it growing in pure clay. Now, most of the manzanitas will get a beautiful, smooth-colored, really richly colored red, maroon, brown bark that's extremely smooth. This one doesn't do that, really. Well, let's see. Maybe it does when it gets really old. This is a crazy thing. It's trying to escape the rosemary that I planted in here. Basically, plants are just like in one big competition. It's like, who's going to win? Who's going to win, Wazzy? Who's going to win this game? Huh? Yeah, they're in competition. It's like, they look so pretty. They look like, oh, they're like nice and peaceful. They're anything but peaceful. These things are all about warfare and taking territory and dominance. All those things that, you know, you're not supposed to do in a peaceful, loving society. Right, Wazzy? Yeah, so anyway, don't think these plants aren't benign. They're just as warrior-like as any evil human empire ever could have been. And there's been many, I guess the Darwinism and the survival of the fittest and dominance and all those things are just bred into everything in the universe, because if you don't fight for your place in the sun, you won't get one. Anyway, so the Manzanita was originally planted way over here, and it does have kind of an interesting twisted bark. This is the first time I've really gotten into this one here, and in fact, it's extremely similar to the what we're looking at here. That's the Manzanita bark right there. Now look at this, right next to it, right here. That's the rosemary bark. They're extremely similar to each other. Here's a bigger rosemary bark right in there. This is Tuscan blue, this real tall one. I use it for screening for the yard here, and it's kind of gotten kind of out of control, but still a great plant. It is a major fire hazard now, I have to admit, but you know, what are you going to do? I mean, I already cleared out this side. I have a video on clearing that side. Yeah, I'll put a link on that. It was a Herculean effort. So that one's pretty fire safe now. Maybe I need to get in here now. But yeah, little urn-shaped bellflowers. What's cool, so this one here does not have the super smooth bark that's representative of most manzanitas, but it does have a beautiful bark. Flaking of the bark coming off there. It has a little bit of color. But what I really like about this particular Manzanita is that the leaf pattern, it almost looks like a Protea or something in the Proteaceae family. And with these alternating leaves, there's kind of a silver. Also, what's going to happen here, in fact, it's just starting to, oh, look, it's just starting to happen here. Look, the new growth is red. It'll get even more red in a few more days. So a lot of the Proteas kind of do that. But anyway, one of the more beautiful forms of Manzanita, doesn't get too out of control, but yeah, it's in bloom in February. It's February right now. Started blooming in January. It's probably going to bloom for another month before it totally peters out. We're actually past peak bloom here, as you can see. The flowers are waning. But let's take a tour of a few other Manzanitas around. Now, interestingly, see this thing over here. I don't really know exactly all the lineage and all that, taxonomy and all those things. If I had lots and lots and lots of time and I wasn't trying to run a business or get jobs done, maybe I'd have time to research more. But yeah, this is Arbutus menziesii, named after a dude by a similar name. And it looks like a huge Manzanita, and the flowers on it, which there really aren't any yet, they're coming, they're on their way. I don't know if you can see, but I can see. Here are the flowers. They're on their way, but they haven't opened up yet, and they have little bell-shaped urns just like the Manzanitas. I'm not entirely sure why this one is not in the Manzanita family. It's got to be within the lineage. It's in the same region. It's got the same flower shape. It's got the same structure. It's just huge. It'd be like by far the largest. It should be called Arctostaphylos giganteum for the gigantic Manzanita. But anyway, that's something kind of fun and interesting there. Look at all my poppies. I put poppy seed out. Here they come. That's what they look like when they sprout, right there. And I've also collected. I like to go and collect wildflower seed from all through California. And here's some really cool lupine, really beautiful lupine that I collected many, many years ago, and it's created colonies around. And you can see it's wrestling with the weeds up here. Try to keep the weeds at bay and the good stuff coming up. So anyway, spring is renewal. Here's my fire escape. I have to do a little more clearing, but I cleared. This was a horrendous thicket in here. One of the things I did is I trimmed out this beautiful Manzanita here. This is one of my favorites of all. It also is blooming. Let's take a look at the flower on that. And this one here is called Dr. Hurd. Now, this was discovered, which, what does that mean? In 1972 by a guy named Coulter. And it makes me wonder, Coulterville, Coulter Pine, there might be a relation. And however, it was discovered in a guy's garden in Portola Valley in 1972 when I was just a wee 3 years old and probably not figuring out my flora quite yet. But so how do you discover a plant in someone's garden? I guess it's a hybrid. It doesn't exist in nature. So I guess maybe it's self hybridized in that garden, and it sprouted up, and then they discovered it. I guess that's what must have happened, because the only other way would be for someone previous to that point to have intentionally hybridized it. And if they intentionally hybridized it, then there wouldn't be a discovery. There would be an origin story. Anyway, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg a little bit. But that's all I know. I could look deeper into that for you. Maybe I will when I'm retired and I have just nothing to do. Anyway, but this is a really, well, thank goodness they discovered it. Thank you, Mr. Coulter, because this is one of my favorite Manzanitas. Look how big the leaf gets. It gets huge. So it almost looks like a tropical form of Manzanita. And this one's been here for 20 years. And I finally trimmed it out. You can trim these things out. It reduces the fire hazard because you want to get the stuff off the ground. And you can keep going up higher. You could be trimming out all this dead wood like that with a cleaner cut, obviously, and whatever's dead. And then it really, really makes a beautiful farm. It is so pretty. So that's your Dr. Hurd Manzanita. Does not have a binomial Latin name because it is a hybrid. It's just called Arctostaphylos Dr. Hurd. And it was actually Dr. Hurd's garden in Portola Valley, which is down by San Jose, from which it was, quote, discovered. So there you go. Here's another madrone that I planted myself 20 years ago. You can see that one is just kind of lingering, which is kind of fine with me. The other one I had one got so big I had to cut it down. It might be sprouting back by now. Okay, what else do we have? We have another Dr. Hurd that got a little wild and overtaken by just a thicket of stuff. I have another Manzanita. I don't even know which one it is. Looks like the bloom is finishing here. That's not a Dr. Hurd, but that's a Dr. Hurd. These are not. And you can see I really need to trim that out. But as you can see, if I do, I'll be looking at a new shed next door that, well, you know, need I say more? I am encouraging my toyons to sprout up in this area. Look at all my toyons. Let's see, where are they? That's a Chilean land palm. I planted that, believe it or not, 20 years ago. Seeds all over the property. Some of them are just now sprouting. That's a whole nother story. Here's a bay tree coming up. I'll probably let that come up. It'll be a nice bush for a while. It'll get too big eventually, but I can cut it at that point, or just keep cutting it down and it'll keep sprouting up. There is a Hollywood right there. Heteromeles, arbutifolia, toyon. So the toyons, here's another toyon, right? So what ends up happening in California often, if you kind of create some shade, there's another toyon right there. If you create some shade, you will create a little bit of a situation where perennials will sprout. And there's another toyon right there. They're coming up everywhere. I have to pick and choose. These things will not require any water. I don't water this whole section here at all. Zero all year because it's all established. But yeah, they had some cover that gave a chance for the toyon to sprout. And I'll show you what the toyon looks like once it gets going. Here's this one here. It's probably like 7 feet tall, nice and bushy. And the idea is to like look up the driveway and get a little bit of like blockage from the road up there. It was completely blocked before I did my fire escaping. It'll get blocked again soon. But you can see, beautiful, attractive shrub, doesn't need any water at all. And imagine those filling in under the manzanitas. And when they do, that's when I'll trim out the manzanitas, make them look pretty. But moving right along, here's another madrone I planted, except then a redwood tree popped up right next to it. It got really big. Madrone said, well, I'll just go away from you and create my own party over here. So that's what he did. And then I finally got rid of the redwood tree, and the madrone I'm training into this really cool windswept shape. So, but getting further up the driveway here, this is a garden that was put in 21 years ago. So showing its age, needs to fill in a little bit. But here's a beautiful, really well-used, often used manzanita called Arctostaphylos densiflora. This is probably the most common eucalyptus you'll see within landscapes. Has some really good qualities to it. It's really dense, and the flowers are dense. Densiflora, see the connection? And ultimately it does turn into a small tree. You can see after 20 years, it's about 6 feet tall. And you could then, if you want, trim it out and reveal its beautiful structure underneath. But right now I'm just using it as a massing element. So that's all I really need at the moment. And I believe I have another manzanita to show you. Oh wait, over here, look at this. So here's some more densiflora. These densiflora, they were unfortunate in the sense that they were placed next to the basketball hoop, and they have somewhat brittle wood. And when you've got teenagers and a basketball hoop and plants with brittle wood underneath them, I don't know why the designer did that. I don't know what he was thinking. Ha! I have to put a complaint in to the guy that designed my garden. Me. Anyway, I thought it would be a great idea. I have some manzanitas here. Densifloras did great. Again, these have been here for 20 years. They're doing well, but except for the basketball hits it. But it's a nice little screening plant. Now, what's more fun, though, are the ones that I pulled out of the Sierra. You're going to think, oh, that guy's evil. That guy's evil, right? He's digging plants up out of the Sierra. Hold your judgment until we do some explanation, right? You go up in the foothills, and these things are coming up everywhere. They're actually, in a lot of places, they're an extreme fire hazard because they're so dense. They're monoculture stands. And I pulled them from a guy's property where I knew it was a fire hazard, and he was like, man, can you take more? Please take more. I'm like, I only need like 5. He had hundreds of thousands. So anyway, you could actually dig these plants up, guys, this time of year, maybe even earlier, like in January, December. I mean, you want to get permission. You want to take it from an area that's private. You cannot take it from forest lands. Well, maybe with a permit, but certainly from private lands. You can't take it from a national forest, national monument, none of those places, right? Like, you'll get in big trouble. But if you know somebody that has property, or you see like a huge stand of these things, they grow in the Sierra at about, I'd say 1,500 foot elevation up to about 5,000 foot elevation. And it's the most common manzanita at that elevation. And they do great here down in the Bay Area. As you can see, they're somewhat open looking, but they have a beautiful purple, dark maroon bark. And you can see the gorgeous quality of the flowers. And these are supposed to be a screening element. You can basically dig up little babies, and you can't dig up big, well, you can dig up big ones, but the little ones do best. Like about maybe a foot tall, just a foot tall. So the guy that you're telling him, I'm going to thin out your fire hazard, when you're done, he's going to be like, wait a minute, I thought you said you were thinning out my fire hazard. And you're going to say, well, I did. Here's my bag of plants. And he's going to say, that didn't thin out my fire hazard. You only took 0.0000001% of the population that's causing the fire hazard. And so you're like, well, that's all I needed. So the point of that is, by thinning out little baby plants from habitat, you can do that in a way that doesn't at all affect that environment. And I don't care. I might get some hate mail. You can't touch anything out of the ground. No. So, but, it's all about, if you love the earth and you understand it, then you can exploit things from it without hurting it. So, yeah. So, am I not in focus? I think I'm not in focus. Can't tell. But anyway, yeah, I took those from where they naturally occurred, brought them here, and now they're happy as clams. What else? Look, there's a little baby Cyanothis right there sprouting up. And that's actually a baby lupine, I can tell. And look at this. I also noticed this little, there's another toyon right there, and a toyon right there, and another Cyanothis here. I see more toyons. The fun thing about that, there's another, this one's called Cyanothis Hirstiorium. This is my favorite Cyanothis. Let's just make this a native California expose. This plant doesn't get any water. This plant is called Cyanothis Hirstiorium. And what I love about this one is it's trailing. It wants to go down almost like rosemary. It's so well behaved. And it's been here without any care whatsoever for so many years. I really need to propagate this plant or buy some more. I really need to plant it all over the place. Look at that. Cyanothis Hirstiorium. Right there. It's native in the area near Hearst Castle. So I've never seen that in habitat. I bought that from a nursery. But what else? There's one more manzanita out front here. And I don't know the name of it. Maybe you guys do. You can help me. Oh, look, here's more Densiflora. Here's younger planted Densiflora. You can see how people use it in landscapes often. These are people who actually have a manicured landscape, unlike mine. They actually have a gardener, unlike mine. But there you go. They kind of keep these kind of low. They trim them. You can really slow the progression of this plant down by keeping it trimmed down. Now, you can only do that for so long before the plant will eventually want to grow out of it or become so stunted that it just doesn't want to grow. But that's what you can do to it. It's a beautiful ground cover if you can keep it down like that for a while. But if you keep trimming it like that, it will eventually give up sooner than it would if you just let it turn into a big tree. But advantage keeping it low. Anything low is less fire hazardous. Anything high is going to give you screening. So you give and you take in this world. Everything you do, every decision you make, you get something, but you give something up. And so that's how it works there. Okay, so here's another one. I got this one long ago. This one's really pretty. This has never been trimmed. Well, I shouldn't say that. My neighbor trims it on this side. Here. But this one has never been trimmed on top or on my side. Look, this is what it looks like when it's never been trimmed. All right, see my hand for comparison size. There's a very fine texture. It has a really small flower and little baby leaves. And I don't know the name of this plant. I kind of grabbed every Manzanita that I could over the years. And this was one of them. Here's a Dr. Hurd that was stuck underneath some giant oak trees in the shade. What? Yeah, there goes my daughter. Anyway, yeah, so this one, you can see where it had sunlight, it was doing great. And where it was covered by these trees, which I took out, it was suffering. So they don't really like shade. So keep that in mind. And here's a bay tree that's been growing here for 20 years, and my neighbor kind of keeps it trimmed down. If you keep it trimmed down or the deer eat it, you can keep it dwarfed, and it's a nice screening element right there. But if you don't keep it trimmed down, look, there's a young one right there. These things will get 80 feet tall if you let them. So anyway, there's some really beautiful yucca whipple-eye. They have a new name, Hesperella now, but I kind of refuse to call it that because it took me a long time to learn the names to begin with, and then they changed them all. And of course, my little bird bath that I put out for the birds. But those are some. Here's more Hirstiorium. Cyanothis Hirstiorium. But this whole area here was really beautiful at one time. And then giant oaks grew up. This giant redwood grew up. They robbed all the light. I took everything out. Now it's going to be this beautiful low garden. You can see the Heteromelia, the arbutus right there. The toyon starting to sprout up. So the whole idea in here is to just get things going and not use any water whatsoever. These are Myrica californica. It's a plant that's native to the coast, Northern California coast of California. Beautiful evergreen screening plant. Of course, this is not native, although it thinks it is because it's a Chilean wine palm. And it's from an exact climate just like our own in the southern hemisphere along the coast of Chile. And that doesn't need any water whatsoever. Yeah, here's another one matching on this side. I think that video is kind of long enough. What do you guys think? Here's a beautiful native California Salvia right here. And some fried eggplant. I have a great video. I'll put a link on the bottom. The common name is that's the culture poppy. No, the culture. No, is it? No, it's the. Too many plant names. But look at this. Here's a cool little form of yucca whipple-eye that's like miniaturized, and it's also multi-trunking. So I could actually propagate that. I could mass plant that, and it'll look like a blue grass. It's totally drought tolerant. Of course, you wouldn't be able to walk across it because it's thorny. Ow. But yeah, and there's a nice little penstemon right here. I think I propagated that out of the mountains somewhere. I can't remember. And well, that's about it. So anyway, we'll end up on some things that used to be native here that are not anymore. This is the beautiful Brahia. This is probably the most beautiful Brahia there is. It's Brahia Nidada. These Brahias used to be native in California before the last ice age, and then the ice age pushed them south into Mexico. So there's no ice age anymore, and a lot of plants are retaking their homeland. This is beautiful. One of the things that's cool about it, there's no thorns on this thing at all. which is kind of unheard of for all other Brahia plants. They're mostly native down into Mexico, Guatemala, Central America. Anyway, so I decided, you know what? You guys used to live, this is your native homeland until they kicked you out. And I'm going to allow you to reclaim your homeland. And now I bequeath you as a native California plant again. There you go. That's pretty much the story.